G'day, mate. I reckon if you have ever watched your veggie patch go from cracking to sluggish mid-season, nitrogen is usually the sneaky culprit. In organic soil, nitrogen feels different to me than the synthetic stuff. It seems slower, it depends on microbes, and it plays the long game. Once I got my head around how it works, I started feeding my soil instead of just my plants, and the results feel like they stick around season after season. Why I think nitrogen matters so much: to me, nitrogen is the main building block for chlorophyll and amino acids. I see it drive leafy growth, strong stems, and the protein content in my tomatoes, beans, and even my lawn. When my soil feels low in available nitrogen, my plants look pale, green, or yellow, growth stalls, and yields drop off. If I push too much available nitrogen, I get lush leaves but hardly any fruit, and I notice more aphids and fungal disease turning up. In my organic patch, I am always chasing balance, not a quick sugar hit. How nitrogen shows up in organic soil to me. In a healthy organic soil, I find more than 95% of total nitrogen seems locked up in organic matter. Think compost, worm castings, old roots, manure, and humus. My plants cannot use that form directly. They need it converted into ammonium or nitrate first. This is where I rely on my soil biology to do the heavy lifting. Organic nitrogen feels like proteins and compounds tucked away in compost, manure, and crop residues. It is not available to plants yet, and it breaks down slowly. I notice it releases faster in warm, moist soils like we get on the Nessa Dollars coast or up in QLD summers. Ammonium feels immediately useful to plants. I see it released by microbes breaking down organic matter. It tends to stick to clay and organic matter in my beds. That makes me think it is less likely to leach in heavy soils. Nitrate also feels immediately available. It is made from ammonium by nitrifying bacteria. It seems mobile in water, though. I have watched it leach after heavy rain, which feels common in sandy Perth or Adelaide soils. Atmospheric nitrogen is N2 gas in the soil air. My plants cannot use it until it is fixed. I love watching legumes with rhizobia bacteria convert it to plant-available forms. The organic nitrogen cycle, the way I understand it, mineralization to me is when soil microbes eat organic materials and release ammonium. I find warm soil above 15 degrees, decent moisture, and good aeration speed this up. That is why my compost pile heats up and why spring feels like the soil wakes up. Nitrification comes next. A different set of bacteria turn ammonium into nitrite, then nitrate. This step seems to need oxygen. I have seen waterlogged soil stall it, which is why my veggies go yellow after a La Nina week in Brisbane. Immobilization is when microbes grab nitrogen for themselves before my plants get it. If I dig in high carbon stuff like straw or sawdust, microbes temporarily tie up nitrogen to break down the carbon. My plants look hungry for a few weeks. I fix it by adding a nitrogen source with the carbon, like chook poo or blood and bone. Denitrification and leaching feel like ways I lose nitrogen. In waterlogged or sandy soils, nitrate can either gas off as nitrogen gas or wash away. That is lost nitrogen to me, and a big reason I keep soil covered and full of organic matter. Nitrogen fixation is my favorite trick. Legumes like clover, peas, lucerne, and wattle partner with rhizobia bacteria to pull nitrogen straight from the air. A good stand of clover in my orchard feels like it adds a heap of nitrogen per hectare per year without me lifting a bag. Signs: my organic soil feels low or high in nitrogen. When my soil feels low in nitrogen, older leaves turn pale green, then yellow, while new growth looks stunted. My brassicas, like broccoli, stay small and button up early. The lawn looks patchy and tired despite water. My compost piles stay cold and break down slowly. When my soil feels high in nitrogen, I get dark green, soft, leafy growth, but few flowers or fruit. My tomatoes grow into massive bushes with no trusses. I notice extra pests like aphids and more mildew pressure. Seedlings can get leaf burn after I add raw manure. Building nitrogen the organic way for Australian conditions as I do at Aussie soils feel ancient to me, often low in organic matter, and our climate swings from drought to downpour. So I use strategies that build a nitrogen bank, not just a quick deposit. I feed the soil, not just the plant. Compost is king in my garden. A 2 to 5 centimeters layer each season adds slow-release nitrogen and the microbes to cycle it. In sandy soils around Perth or the Sunshine Coast, compost also seems to stop nitrate from leaching straight past the roots. I use green manures and cover crops. I sow legumes between main crops. In temperate zones, I like field peas or vetch over winter. In the subtropics, I use pigeon pea, lablab, or cowpea over summer. I let them flower, then chop and drop. I get free nitrogen plus weed suppression and better water holding. I choose organic amendments that suit my patch. Blood and bone feels like it has around 5 to 8% nitrogen and releases at a medium speed. I use it for general veggie beds before planting and for hungry corn and leafy greens. Pelletized chook manure feels about 2 to 4% nitrogen and works medium to fast. I use it to top up mid-season, but I go light in hot weather to avoid burn. Fish emulsion seems about 4 to 5% nitrogen and is fast acting. I use it as a liquid feed for seedlings and as a foliar spray, and it works well in pots and sandy soils. Lucerne hay or pellets feel around 2 to 3% nitrogen and release slowly. They make a mulch that feeds as it breaks down, and I reckon they are excellent for no-dig beds. Worm castings feel like 1 to 2% nitrogen and release slow and steady. They are loaded with microbes, and I use them for seed raising and planting holes. Aged cow or sheep manure feels like 0.5 to 2% nitrogen and is very slow. It adds bulk organic matter for clay soils in Vic or Tas and builds long-term fertility to me. I keep carbon and nitrogen in balance. The C to N ratio rules the show in my experience. Soil microbes seem to want a diet around 24 to 1. Sawdust feels like 400 to 1, so it robs nitrogen. Compost feels about 15 to 1, so it releases nitrogen. If I mulch with straw at 80 to 1, I sprinkle some blood and bone or chook pellets underneath so my plants do not miss out. I protect nitrogen from loss. I mulch to stop rain from hammering bare soil and leaching nitrate. I avoid digging when soil is wet. I reckon you will wreck structure and gas off nitrogen. I do not leave beds bare over summer. I sow a quick cover of buckwheat or millet to catch leftover nitrogen. I water deeply but less often. Shallow daily watering in sandy soils just seems to wash nitrate down. How much nitrogen I think an organic garden actually needs? Most veggie crops seem to use between 100 and 200 kg of nitrogen per hectare per year. In backyard terms, that feels like about 10 to 20 grams of actual nitrogen per square meter. A 25-liter bag of compost at 1% nitrogen gives me 250 grams of total nitrogen, but I figure only 10 to 20% might become available in the first year. So 25 liters per square meter each season puts me in the ballpark. I add a handful of blood and bone per square meter before heavy feeders like sweet corn, and I feel set. Nitrogen and soil pH in Australia as I see it. A lot of our soils feel naturally acidic, especially on the East Coast and in Tas. And nitrifying bacteria seem to slow down below pH 5.5, so mineralization stalls. If my soil test shows low pH, a bit of lime or dolomite helps nitrogen cycle better for me. On the flip side, alkaline soils in SA and WA can lose ammonium as gas if I leave manures on the surface in hot weather. I dig them in lightly or water them in. Common mistakes I try to avoid. Adding raw manure right before planting feels too hot and can burn roots. I compost it first or age it 6 months. Relying on one source causes problems in my experience. Blood and bone every season without adding carbon leads to soil that slumps and goes hard. I rotate between compost, green manure, and mineral amendments like rock dust. Forgetting winter slows everything. Nitrogen mineralization nearly stops below 10 degrees. In Canberra or Tassie winters, I plant a legume cover crop in autumn so nitrogen feels ready when spring hits. Overwatering after fertilizing wastes my effort. That liquid fish emulsion I just applied will be in the stormwater drain if a 30-millimeter downpour follows. I watch the bomb radar and time it right. The big picture for organic growers, as I feel it, nitrogen in organic soil is not just a nutrient to me. It feels like a relationship between plants, microbes, and you. When I build organic matter, I build a nitrogen bank that pays interest every time it rains and every time the soil warms up. I get fewer boom and bust cycles, better tasting produce, and soil that holds together during a dry spell or a big wet. I reckon start with a soil test so you know where you stand. Then add compost, grow legumes, mulch well, and go easy on the strong stuff. Your soil will thank you, and your tomatoes will actually taste like tomatoes. If you want to dial this in for your patch, tell me your suburb and what you are growing. We can work out a rough nitrogen budget and a seasonal plan that suits your rainfall and soil type.